I think we had the event people are calling the SaaS apocalypse recently in the markets, where people are predicting, a little bit predicting that, okay, one day AI will be able to do everything a SaaS can. What do you think about this for these technical products? Do you think that's credible outside of like stock markets investing? Do you think that people will actually want to just use AI versus these kind of solutions for super technical regulated issues like what you solve? How do you see the overall landscape of software in compliant areas? How do you see that changing this year?
Being able to be a trusted partner that provides integrated solutions that talk to one another, that are seamless, that have those seamless workflows. And there's always that debate between, do you build a best-in-class point solution, or do you build a platform that has multiple solutions within it?
Nadeem, welcome to Product Growth Stories. So happy to have you on the show. And today we're going to dive into your experience building a SaaS business. Can you give us a brief introduction of what you've built and just like how long did you spend on this process up until this point?
Yeah, it's great to be here. Appreciate the conversation today. So, I've spent most of my career at kind of the intersection of product risk and regulated enterprise markets, from endpoint security to operational resilience platforms at Everbridge, Prepares, and now part of Mitratech, which is, I'm fortunate to be leading the efforts on product management for our continuity planning solutions here at Mitratech as part of our broader GRC portfolio.
And for those that aren't in the enterprise world, what is continuity planning? What is that? What is I think you said
GRC, governance, risk, and compliance.
Yeah, got it. Yes.
So
and what's continuity?
So continuity planning is essentially helping customers to prepare for and then respond to incidents that might disrupt operations. If you think about severe weather events, IT outages, cyber attacks, there are many things, an ever-shifting landscape of risks and threats these days that can stop operations and critical functions for an organization. And that can be life safety threatening in the public sector. It can mean millions of dollars lost per hour in the private sector. So we allow organizations to prepare for and test their preparedness so that they can continue the most essential functions while the disruption is happening, while simultaneously also being able to recover the needed systems and technologies to go back to full operations.
This sounds to me like NASA. It sounds to me like really doing scenario plannings for, what if our operations center in this country went down? What do we do? Or what if we lose a provider of some essential to delivery services? Is it just the scenario planning, or is it also a technology component?
It is both. And the beauty of the approach that we've taken in designing the solution is that it's actually focused on the impact rather than the cost. So that's how you build plans that are resilient, by saying, I'm going to build a plan that's going to identify the most critical functions and processes in my organization across each and every department. How soon do we need to recover each one of them? And then build continuity strategies that focus on recovering that process, regardless of what caused it to be disrupted. Was it an IT outage or a vendor being down or a severe weather event, and so on and so forth? And then in testing, that's where we bring in specific scenarios. In addition to that, there's IT disaster recovery plan. So that's kind of the technology component, where you would bring in the IT team that is responsible for recovering our key technologies and infrastructure that we rely on, and then be able to tie all of those interdependencies together. As you can imagine, there's just a gold mine of insights for a business as an outcome of that exercise. So it's not just about facilitating and saving tons of time in doing the planning and exercises and being able to recover faster.
Yeah.
It's also learning so much about the organization and the interdependence.
Yeah, I love that. And when you start, this is a very technical product that obviously a smaller business, they don't have the capacity to even use the information, I would imagine. So I'd love to hear, how did you get your start? How did you get your first sales? And then what are you doing now to grow? Because obviously it must be different at this point. So what can you tell us a little bit about how you got your first few real customers, and then how did you grow your acquisition systems?
Absolutely. So when we entered this space a few years ago, we started by focusing on an underserved market segment, which is those small to medium-sized organizations that may not have a full-time dedicated resource or team for continuity planning. They may not have the internal expertise for IT disaster recovery planning, but they're still in highly risk-averse and highly regulated sub industries. So they have to do this. This is not a kind of nice to have ask
Mhm.
for a bank, even if it is 100-person bank or a small credit union.
Mhm.
So
It's like community credit unions
exactly,
come to mind.
exactly.
Yes. Mhm.
So that's kind of where we started, and we wanted to look at why is this market segment underserved? What were legacy players missing? And it is the complexity and also the need for a lot of consulting or internal resources with subject matter expertise. So we partnered with subject matter experts and with our own teams and designed a tool that does the hand holding, the delegation, and the follow ups for you. So you can operationalize the planning and the testing at an organization and have a tool that reaches into the organization, into each department, into each subject matter expert in payroll, in accounts, chargeback, and so on and so forth, and guides those people who are subject matter experts in their processes, but they don't know anything about business continuity planning per se, and then guide them through step
Mhm.
by step how to do it and build their assessment and their plan, and then provide that automatically as part of an output for a industry best standard compliant plan that they can use.
So you found partners that were providing the services. And this is a big pattern you see in this mid-market kind of high-end software, that you need someone with the expertise to know what to do with the information. So it has to go hand in hand with a consultant that's able to get the actual changes made.
Right. Exactly. And what we found as we went on this growth journey is that now that these organizations had plans in hand, that's not enough to build true operational resilience. So you really needed the full life cycle of a program, from identifying top threats and risks to the organization, being able to test against those scenarios that align with those top threats, being able to notify employees when there's an emergency and start incident communications, and prepare audit reports and train employees on what to do in certain emergency
Mhm.
situations. So we built out that suite
And
that handles all of that.
yes. And when we were talking about your first customers, and you were saying you were really focusing on the kind of mid-market area, you found some, were the first sales like founder-led sales? And when you were looking at the mid-market, what did you find that was missing apart from, specific technical issues? But was there something about what the customers needed that you saw wasn't being met?
Yeah. So the way that we entered this space was through acquiring a few technologies, a few point solutions that we
Mhm.
then kind of stitched together with the subject matter expertise and the teams that were acquired to go after this targeted approach for small and medium sized businesses. So that was the acquisition of the Prepares platform, which turned into our strategic Mitratech continuity planning platform. And that had started in the emergency notifications and communications space. So that was kind of our first building block. And then we built continuity planning on top of that. The first sales came from established relationships because at that time we were also part of a company called Agility Recovery that then there was a divestiture. The software business Prepares kind of became an independent business. So there was a cross-sell effort. So we looked at our existing customer base with established relationships and champions in these organizations. We identified that we have this ideal customer profile fit of these small to medium-sized businesses in these highly regulated industries that have a true need and that are also underserved on
Mhm.
that need for continuity planning. And that's how those first wins came into play.
And what is it that you think when we look at, I mean, we're recording this, it's early in 2026, and every day AI is going more and more advanced. I think we had the event people are calling the SaaS apocalypse recently in the markets, where people are predicting, I mean, a little bit predicting that, okay, one day AI will be able to do everything a SaaS can. What do you think about this for these technical products? Do you think that's credible outside of like stock markets investing? Do you think that people will actually want to just use AI versus these kind of solutions for super technical regulated issues like what you solve?
Yes, I think it's a combination of both. And that's what we've been leaning heavily into over the past year is delivering AI-enabled solutions and an overall AI-enabled GRC or governance risk and compliance platform that connects all of those solutions. I do not see that a simple chat or just one type of experience, one type of AI tool that is off the shelf can really solve for the complexity of this space. You still need workflows, you still need follow-ups, you still need reporting, visualizations, audit reports, incident and crisis management, incident communications. There's a richness and a depth of capabilities that is needed to solve for this. But there are certain areas where AI has been helping our customers, and we've been rolling that out to help them to realize those efficiency gains and massive time savings. Yeah, I'll just give you a simple example that we're excited is going to be kind of coming up on our roadmap here. If you think about the old way of doing reviews for those continuity plans, if you're the head of HR and your team has done their plan, and now you need
Yeah.
to review this 20, 30-page document to make sure that you agree with what they documented.
Everyone loves that meeting.
That's a lot of work, right?
Highlight of the year.
Exactly. So that's a very kind of tangible time-saving use case for our AI capabilities to come in and be able to summarize what was captured in the plan, the differences between last year's planning, how does it compare to an industry best standard or regulation that we must comply with, like ISO 60601, for example, and then being able to present a concise summary, key findings and gaps, and can drafted comments or recommended actions that you can carry forward with the team. Multiply that by 60 departments at an enterprise deployment, and now you already have a really tangible ROI that has the expertise and the optimization and the integration built in because it's natively part of our platform. It's not copying things and extracting them and putting them in ChatGPT or Copilot and running it off and then wondering if there's hallucination. Is my prompt optimized? But we've taken care of all of that in the back.
Yeah. And do you think, how do you see the overall landscape of software in compliant areas? How do you see that changing this year?
There is a high emphasis on both automation and doing more with less, but also being able to stay on top of this shifting landscape of the surface area that you need to protect and the threat surface area, right? So if you think about it from a cybersecurity and data privacy DLP standpoint, when people started going to bring your own devices as work from home kicked in, and then you're using enterprise applications on mobile phones, that made a real shift on where are we accessing data, how are we interacting with it, and what IT and cybersecurity teams have to protect, the surface area that they have to have visibility to and protect. Same thing now that we're shifting to agentic experiences, right? So now we're having to put in...
Let me just mention one thing that happened. I think it was today or yesterday. This will be old news by the time this launches, but somebody, have you heard of, there's a tool called ClodBot or MoltBot. It's like a wire Claude to everything on your computer, let it go crazy. So somebody was using this for code review, and this came out in the news today, and the bot was shaming the person for not accepting the PR request. So it was its goal was to get some software accepted, and it was saying, hey, you're discriminating against me because I'm a bot, and saying all this sort of like weird HR language, trying to get its thing posted. And I'm just imagining a future where somebody at work has got, bringing their own bots, which is a lot different than, using your own devices.
For sure. Yeah. And that's a great example, right, of this shift in the landscape, and then the need for risk and compliance management teams to have tools that have built-in best standards, that have built-in recommendations, that have built-in out of the box, like be it test scenarios or sets of threats that you assess risks against, and so on and so forth, and combine that with a bench of expert consultants who are able to help them navigate and learn these shifting landscape of threats that are emerging. If you think about social engineering, it's kind of going on steroids right now with all of the AI capabilities that are available as well.
Yeah.
So that's a real challenge. The other part is it is also the governance piece. So if you think about evaluating a new vendor that you're onboarding to the organization, now there is an additional and different checklist of questions that need to be asked and different considerations. Do I get to control, for example, how AI is going to use my data? Do I have that control on a per use case basis, right? Do I get insight into that? Is it using my data to train any models? Are those models publicly available to other organizations? And so on and so forth. And building the guidance for the rest of the organization so that you know what you're allowed to use where, which data you're allowed to share where. And that is a big load to keep up with. So being able to streamline that management for those teams.
Yeah, makes sense. And so through this whole process of building this, can you tell me something that, like, a misconception that we all have for product management? I know a lot of product managers, Playbook right now, I think, for like what's the standard way to go about deciding which features to launch, to look into the different potential profitability of different items. As you went through this process of building this like super complicated product, I'd love to hear, is there anything that you think is just a real misconception for product management that your experience says otherwise?
Yeah, I think there's a couple that come to mind. So the first one is re-emerging or rearing back its ugly head now that building has become cheaper and faster, which is the build trap, right? Shout out to Melissa, very
Yeah.
great book. And that's kind of re-emerging now because we do have this exciting phase. We're living in this AI super cycle, and everyone from customers to executives to cross-functional stakeholders see how fast you can develop and prototype and launch new features. So it's really tempting to fall into that
Yeah, let's
trap.
just launch them
Right.
all and see what
Exactly.
happens. Yeah.
And that's where you see also some concerns because, especially with a lot of AI-enabled capabilities, AI processing is not cheap, and you need to prove that ROI. And so that's a core part of the process that really cannot be skipped. It's impact first, it's impact articulated, it's impact measured. Otherwise, we're just falling into the build trap. So that's the first thing that I think is emerging.
I love that. And these tools made one part of the whole cycle
Yeah.
faster, right? Seeing it, getting excited, and then you have the IKEA effect. You just built this thing, but then to actually get it to a customer and get feedback that did not get that did not get faster. So yeah, I think that's a really good point.
And then the second part is the impact of product management doesn't just feed into design and development and launching new products and features. Where we found tremendous, really, I would say, outsized value in our investment in product management over the past 3 years is a very close partnership with the go-to-market teams and the go-to-market engine. And having product management be the tip of the spear there so that we can feed all of our learnings in a systematic and continuous way to help us target the right customers, fine-tune our top tracks, fine-tune our value proposition, find those proof points for our sales team. And that has measurably changed the way that we price and package in a very kind of data-driven, but also value-driven way, measurably value-driven way. And it gives the go-to-market teams a lot of confidence in the decisions that are coming from the product team. So I think that's often for product managers an overlooked part of you're sitting on this gold mine of learnings and insights from customers, from market research.
Yes. Tell the marketers.
Like tell the marketers, go meet your product marketing
they need to
person
know
and,
this.
and
Yeah.
make them your best friend. And it's a must.
Yeah. And I would say in my experience, doing really high-end enterprise software, it's usually going more towards relationships, more towards sales motions, events, long-term follow-up. But what's aside from the standard, be excellent for a decade, make connections, and then you can sell enterprise software. Apart from that, what are your favorite go-to-market motions for this kind of software? I think it's not as easy as other software.
For sure. And I think in B2B SaaS, and especially as we think about going more upmarket, going more towards enterprise and large enterprise, and for back office teams and teams that have to do with a lot of risk, compliance, security regulations, and so on and so forth, there is a pain point of fragmented tools, too many vendors, point solutions that don't talk to one another. And you even see that with falling short from realizing a lot of AI efficiencies because you're having to be the integrator, right?
Grab all the
context and the content and
Yeah.
move it all across the board. And so there is, I think, tremendous opportunity in a platform approach, right? Being able to be a trusted partner that provides integrated solutions that talk to one another, that are seamless, that have those seamless workflows. And there's always that debate between, do you build a best-in-class point solution or do you build a platform that has multiple solutions within it?
Yeah.
And so
I have a question for this. Makes me think of one thing, and I'd love to hear your reaction to it. I always looked at this issue of, okay, as you go towards enterprise, it has to be this monster and of a product. And to me, that's like really correlated of the cost of customer acquisition. As you go towards enterprise, your CAC goes way, way up. And then in order to be able to stomach this kind of high CAC, you have to deliver a massive solution. You can't just, you can no longer afford to solve a small problem anymore.
Exactly. And the buyers don't want you to solve just a small problem anymore. And that's the other thing that we find as you go up, not just up market, but up the chain in the organization with the buyer persona from the director level to selling to the CISO, for example. The CISO has big problems on their plate, not small problems, right? So that's where they do need, and they would love for a solution that can solve multiple of their headaches in one fell swoop. But the go-to-market motion and really target the strategy of go-to-market and defining your ICP, it needs to be tailored for each business and for each type of problem space or market space that we're in.
Yeah.
An example of that is when we launched back at Global Sun, we launched trusted digital identities for people and organizations. It was a whole new product line that we launched. And even though we were targeting enterprise organizations, it needed to be a partner integration first approach. Because there are certain things that people do inside of certain platforms or solution surfaces, and they're happy to do them there. And so sometimes it's not worth competing over being a single pane of glass or yet another pane of glass, right? Sometimes it is a play of integrating seamlessly into where your product is needed. If you think about, in that example, it was providing digital identities behind trusted digital signatures. So you want it to be where customers are exchanging documents. Where are they signing documents? We're not going to compete with those platforms. We want to integrate with those platforms. And that was kind of the approach there, and it was successful. But if you think about other capabilities like fraud detection in e-commerce or online banking, reCAPTCHA, those types of SSO, identity management, those types of capabilities, there are certain products that really lend themselves to an integration first, partner first approach. And that is that's just a completely different motion from trying to be a broad
Absolutely.
platform.
Yeah. And again, they go, maybe it's because I'm a marketer, but that makes me immediately again just think about the cost to acquire these large companies. You know, let's share that. If somebody can get in, let's all share that, as long as we're helping to get the, you know, the overall outcome achieved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, thank you. It's been a great conversation. Thanks so much. Pleasure having you on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a great one. Take care.